Good morning, you're watching Newsx and I'm Medha Sharan. Our top focus remains the aftermath of the kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. US President Donald Trump, while addressing the details of Operation Absolute Resolve, has once again claimed that there were little to no damages to US military while carrying out the operation. President Trump has stated that only one of the helicopters got damaged, but nobody was killed in the operation. He has further denied to speak on the matter of who will be taking charge of Venezuela, calling the entire affair, quote, very controversial. Not only this, Trump has addressed Venezuela as a dead country and once again expressed the need of big investments from the oil companies to bring back the infrastructure.
It was a very dangerous operation. It was amazing that we had a few injured, but all are in good shape right now. But I knew there was great danger. You got off a helicopter, the helicopters were being shot at. They got on the ground. They were amazing talent and tremendous patriotism, bravery. The bravery was incredible. Lindsay, they got off the helicopter and the bullets were flying all over the place. As you know, one of the helicopters got hit pretty badly, but we got everything back.
My colleague Brian Thomas joins us for more on this. Brian, the US President has given us a little more details about the Operation Absolute Resolve, which the United States had carried out in order to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
Well, yes, in a very highly charged statement reflecting on a recent US military operation and broader economic strategy, President Trump clearly stated that during the mission, one of their helicopters was hit quite severely by the enemy fire. But he said that every aircraft and team came home safely, and also said most importantly they suffered no fatalities, and also asserted underscoring the success of the operation without loss of life. He also responded saying that the US is calling the shots, which some might find controversial, but he said that that is what exactly leadership looks like to him. And again, speaking about the situation in Venezuela also, Trump described the South American nation as being in a disastrous state after years of mismanagement and failing leadership, and also warned that had he lost the US election, America itself might be in similar disarray. Not only that, he also insisted that the US oil companies, which is the most important part, are prepared to invest heavily to rebuild Venezuela's failing oil infrastructure, and said that infrastructure, he said, that the US initially helped establish decades earlier, and that these firms are ready to go once legal and security conditions permit. Not only that, Trump has always been criticizing, and now he has again criticized the past administration for allowing critical energy assets to deteriorate, saying that he argued that the US and the world need robust investment from all major producers to rejuvenate the country's economy and energy sector, pointing to the scale of Venezuela's untapped crude and reserves and even strategic importance itself. Yes.
All right, Brian, I would please request you to stay on with me. Now, US Vice President JD Vance has responded to some of the criticism that the United States is facing regarding its strikes on Venezuela, addressing claims that Venezuela has nothing to do with drugs because most of the fentanyl comes from elsewhere. JD Vance stated that neither is fentanyl the only drug, and some of the fentanyl does come from Venezuela. Vance stated, second, cocaine, which is the main drug trafficked out of Venezuela, is a profit center for all of the Latin America cartels. If you cut out the money from cocaine or even reduce it, you substantially weaken the cartels overall. Third, yes, a lot of fentanyl is coming out of Mexico. That continues to be a focus of our policy in Mexico and is a reason why President Trump shut the border on day one. Finally, Vance addressed the discussions around Venezuelan oil, stating that about 20 years ago, Venezuela expropriated American oil property and until recently used that stolen property to get rich and fund their narco-terrorist activities. Vance said, and I quote, I understand the anxiety over the use of military force, but are we just supposed to allow communists to steal our stuff in our hemisphere and do nothing? Great powers don't act like that. The United States, thanks to President Trump's leadership, is a great power again. Everyone should take note, end quote. Brian, we're now seeing that US Vice President JD Vance has also made a few claims saying that, the Venezuelan government used American assets and expropriated all of that oil, and now used that very same thing to fund its narco-terrorist activities.
Vice President JD Vance pushed back strongly against critics who argue that Venezuela has little to do with drug crisis facing the US, laying out several points on why Washington sees Caracas as central to broader narcotics and security concerns. The first being, Vance acknowledged that while most fentanyl entering the US is trafficked through Mexico, claims that Venezuela has nothing to do with drugs, overlooked the broader picture, and not only noted that fentanyl has flowed from Venezuela in the past and that the country is involved in trafficking of other illegal substances. He also emphasized that cocaine, not fentanyl, is the main drug that is trafficked through Venezuela, and this trade comes a major revenue stream for Latin America cartels, and cutting off or reducing cocaine profits, Vance argued, would substantially also weaken cartel networks overall. Then he also reiterated that tackling the flow of fentanyl via Mexico remains a cornerstone of U.S. drug policy, and he pointed to President Trump's decision to tighten the U.S.-Mexico border early in the administration as part of the effort. Again, there were many criticisms against the oil, where he said that the U.S. motives are tied to oil interests. Vance recalled that around 2 decades ago, Venezuela nationalized American oil properties, which he claimed were then used to enrich Caracas and even allegedly fund what he described as narco-terrorist activities. Not only that, he also argued that allowing a hostile government in the Western Hemisphere to keep stolen assets without challenge was also inconsistent with how great powers behaved. And the last being, he pointed out, and he spoke about beyond specific policy points, he framed the administration's actions as part of a broader return to assertive U.S. global leadership, suggesting that the U.S. is once again acting decisively to protect its interests and security in the very region. Yes.
Brian, I would please request you to stay on with me. Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino has now issued a statement following the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The minister has called on people to restart their normal activities in work, trade and education. During his address, Padrino warned what happens to Venezuela today could happen to any state or government, while stating that a large part of Maduro's security team and innocent civilians were killed during the US operation. The televised address also saw the defense minister asserting that the Venezuelan armed forces firmly rejects the cowardly kidnapping of Maduro and his wife after the cold-blooded murder of a large part of his security team, soldiers and innocent civilians. He also added that the army has given its backing to Vice President Delcy Rodriguez to act as interim president of Venezuela. Brian, we're now also seeing that the Venezuelan defense minister has come out and made a statement urging people to return back to normalcy, and said that the Venezuelan armed forces would be supporting the interim president who was vice president earlier in order to ensure some sort of a smooth functioning of the country after the United States had kidnapped Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro.
Well, yes, after the very capture of the president and his wife, Venezuela was shaken, and even the vice president acting as is an acting president rather the interim president. Now, clearly, also after all this happened, the Venezuela's defense minister has claimed that even U.S. strike killed most members of the President Nicolas Maduro's personal security team. Even though yes, the situation still remains extremely grim at Venezuela, but said that trade and other parts of the country are working normally. And again, very importantly, we talk about the statement itself. It comes amid this escalating tension following even Washington's military action, where even we just mentioned that President Trump spoke about it, about the entire operation. JD Vance also firmly took a strong stance against the Maduro government and how US and how he stands with the president itself. And this again comes amid these tensions following Washington's action. Though again, independent confirmation of casualties still remains very limited at this point of time. Yes.
All right.